Walton is to be our home for the best months of the summer, using it as a base from which to explore the backwaters, the Stour and the Orwell. Walton used to be a place of bucolic tranquillity, a church and a few rustic houses clinging to the high sandy land of the Naze. Over behind the ridge in Walton Creek, a sizable industrial area grew up around the business of grinding local grain to be shipped to London by Thames barge. There was a tidal mill and a windmill as well, but then along came new technology, and steam mills outperformed the old natural methods using wind and water. But steam brought a new industry to Walton, Edwardian tourists who arrived by their thousands at the steam pier. Hotels and theatres sprang up, the high street boomed. And the mill pool became just one more tourist attraction, a boating lake, and one side was plenty big enough for sailing whatever the tide was doing, the other shallower side for rowing boats and children. You can still see the dividing line between the two stretching across the salt marsh. Eventually the windmill rotted and had to come down, and was replaced with a yacht club. Not an entirely bad swap, I guess. By and large, the posh Edwardian tourists have now left Walton. The once proud ferry pier has a roof over the funfair. It looks like a sort of aquatic B&Q, and not in a good way, as if an aquatic B&Q could ever be a good thing. The local council hasn't helped much by throwing up some pretty ugly bits of breeze block municipal architecture along the prom, and stairways with all the charm of a 1950s football stadium. A new breed of London tourist has now come to stay at the massive caravan parks that flank the town. Off-season you can rent a 6-berth static van here for £200 a week. Peak season it's £600. That's £100 per person per week for their main holiday. It's not much, but these holiday makers at Walton are stout yeoman English. Hard workers, hard players, hard drinkers. Their passions are football and fishing. It was their Victorian great-great-grandfathers who really built the biggest empire the world has ever seen. They worked in the urban factories and sweatshops that provided the industrial muscle on which the British Empire was founded. They gave freely of their children into service in the armed forces, and they still do. These are the real English. The working-class Londoners who've transformed the cuisine and the nightlife. Chip shop, restaurants, McBrain's, this and that, rock shop, sand, sea and swimwear. But us Brits still like to cavort in the unfeasibly cold, murky grey waters of the North Sea. Makes you proud and confuses the French quite a lot. From Google Earth you can still see the outline of the old tidal pond, and I'm strangely reassured by the way that these smooth organic lines of Walton and Sole Creek are starting to reimpose themselves on the landscape. At ground level you can see fragments of the old dyke walls, and the mill gates are almost functional. Here's a thing I learned. On Sundays, when the mill wasn't being used to grind grain, they'd hold the water back until low tide, and then let it all go at once. The mighty, churning, muddy cataract would sweep down the channel, making it wider and deeper and easier for the grain barges to navigate without the need for any dredging. A nicely balanced, virtuous circle. Walton has to be the best boatyard of the trip so far, and unlike at a marina you can see what the hulls look like below the waterline. The exotic French lozenges with their deep fin keels are kept well away. I like the way the boats lean like drunks against each other or the side of the quay. Many of the boats are local designs. Maurice Griffiths came from this area, and a Dunkirk little ship. And every boat with a story to tell. Some people don't like these tidal places. To me they're wonderful, always changing. In the summer the yard is an endless delight of old decaying boats. Piles of bricks, birds and summer flowers. The posh boats are in the one remaining fragment of the tidal mill pond, entombed behind a tidal gate. of terrifyingly flimsy proportions. Needless to say, the Google slug is slumming it with the mud-squatting proles. Then, as the tide returns, the whole feel of the place changes. Fish and birds follow the incoming water, powered by the twice-daily miracle of the tides. People start to appear. The whole pace of life changes. Boatyard people start to move vessels around, and it's all getting entirely too frantic. Time to head out into the quieter creeks of the backwaters. The weatherman was predicting a classic British summer gale in a couple of days' time. 4 knots, that's all it'll do. It's the Jenner up, no main. If I put the main up, I'd get another half knot, that would be all. But basically, the hull is going at hull speed. That's as fast as it wants to go. Oakley Creek lies on the opposite side of Hamford Water. It's a lovely little creek. They're spoilt just by the fact that there's an explosives wharf at the top, but actually, you know, that's pretty good, I guess, because it means it's never going to get busy, because nobody wants to mix their business with an explosives wharf. Yet again, Hawkeye isn't working. I really am going to have to do something about this, because this is ridiculous. So I crossed Hamford Water and headed up the creek. It leads to one of many East Anglian salt docks, most of which have been in use for millennia. Later on it became the site of a chemical factory, which is now operated by Exchem. The 1,200-acre site has a licence to store and process explosives, up to 600 tonnes at a time. But they're only allowed to load a maximum of 125 tonnes onto the cargo ships that come up the creek. And the Exchem plant also produces an additive for diesel fuel that helps it to go bang at the right point in the 4-stroke cycle. It's called 2-ethyl hexyl nitrate. Sadly, at 100 degrees, it has a tendency to go bang all by itself. Hence the cautiously spaced buildings, strange pipelines and bunded vehicle bays, some with facilities to spray vehicles with water. Over at the wharf there are more bunded bays, because it doesn't pay to park explosives trucks too close together. The whole thing adds a little frisson to the place, because some pretty big ships guarded by nervous, well-armed men pass up and down this narrow creek. This is what you come to the Walton backwaters for. For little drifts. Up creeks where not many other people go. You see the seals, the birds, the mud, the sky. Look at that. The big yellow pole is used to help the ships turn around so they can come out forwards. It's still a quiet, secluded spot, mainly because no one really wants to spend too much of their leisure time hanging around the place, but I'm prepared to risk it for a night or two. And it certainly doesn't seem to bother the backwaters resident seals at all. 2 types, harbour seals and grey seals. Back in the 80s there were only 5 residents. Now there's a healthy breeding colony of 70. Bloody good show. The red colour on the seal pelts comes from the naturally occurring oxide in the Essex mud. Well, there you are. Both sails up now. Jib not completely unfurled because I'm in no hurry, but it's the first time today. It's just come nice. That evening I dropped anchor in the small creek to the east of the ex-chem works in the hope that the seals would appear. The sky did some pretty crazy things. And then just around dusk, which at this latitude in the summer can last for hours, the wind came howling through.
These are some pretty vicious gusts coming across here. Wow.
The slug tugged and heaved at the anchor, the chain grinding and graunching in the bow roller. But Essex mud has the most miraculous power to hold anchors, and tucked this far up the creek, I felt completely safe. Eventually the seals clocked that I was there, and a few came within sniffing distance, while others hunted in the fiercely ebbing tide.
They're all around me. This is Seal Central here.
The greys live almost exclusively on fish. The harbour seals are more flexible and eat crustaceans as well. They can all dive to 90 metres and stay down for up to half an hour. Imagine that. 2 whole episodes of The Archers. They can't see much further through the murky East Anglian water than we can, but they use their whiskers to detect changes in the current caused by fish or geography. They perceive the invisible subsurface branched mud channels as subtle changes in water flow. They also have a great sense of smell. Bet we really stink. By midnight, the moon was up, and the gale was over.
It's horrible o'clock in the morning, and I got up early to watch the seals. As the tide has gone out, they've settled in. They obviously don't care that I'm here. Of course, there could be more seals here if I wasn't here, I don't know. I can hear some just on the other side of the hump there too. I don't think the boats bother them. They are lovely things to look at. I mean, I know people get emotional about whales and so on, but these guys are just, the females in particular, look fantastic. They just look so feminine. Look at you. You're beautiful. Fantastic eyes. Up my nose. They spend a lot of time on land just kind of lying around. They're hunting obviously underwater, but I don't think you're ever going to see underwater footage of Essex seals feeding. It'd be really, really hard to film, and you could never do it in this water. I mean, how do they find the fish? And that's what they live off. How could they find the fish in this water, in this murky, murky stuff? Incredible. Incredible. There's another dock here. I assume that sign says keep out, but you could still get a sizable boat in here if you wanted. Nobody would ever really know. Oh, that It's not in the best of repair, is it? This is getting pretty narrow now. Look, there's that on that side. And there's a bank on that side. No idea we're going to get through. It's a rising tide though, so no sweat. The boat that sails sideways. Oh, you've gone into the bank, have you? Okay. And now the stern's swinging round. She's coming out a bit more. She's aground. It's going to swing round. Peeing along the shore this way. Pushing her bow out. At some stage this shore is going to move away from us and then she'll take off sailing. Here we go. Nearly. Two streams to go down. One there. Oh, this one here. I think this one might be slightly bigger.
Next time in Keep Turning Left. That's film 50 if you're still counting. There's Beaumont Quay.
It's quite close.
The port of Harwich.
As a dinghy sailor, you don't often sail down to leeward when there's a fair amount of wind. And it's really nice to feel the boat heel. I mean, she's really leaning into the work now. Very nice.
And the peace of the Stour.